Hey guys, welcome to the third lesson for the basic programming. If you didn't watch the previous two, please first watch these two because otherwise you will probably get a little bit into the comprehension difficulties in this video because we're progressing fast in our learning curve. For now, if you just have any questions, remarks, or just want to join our community about programming, crypto trading, concentrated liquidity management, please just join our Discord. The link will be below in the description. Um, Today we will talk about variables, which is the next step of our programming. Like in the previous lesson, we said like we had a counter which was 1, and in some while loop we said counter is the old counter plus 1 to make it incremental. Um, we did this thing to create counting from 1 to 100, I guess, I believe, or 10 even. Um, which we actually did here is using a variable which was called counter and was of a number. Now I will delete this to create a new situation. In programming, variables are kinda the most important component of your whole application in like 99.99% of all cases. Let me show it how they actually work. At first, let's make a little container here, and we don't need that big of. Let's say this is a variable, like a notepad, if you know it, and we are going to give it a name, which actually will be called name. So this variable, we call it name, and we will set the content of it to John. So now if you are in code, you just say, give me name or give me counter, and it will reply every time with the value John. So it has an identifier. Let's also note this down. We have an identifier, and this is the value. So every time we say name, we get our reply back with John. Like print name will result in John. What we can do in this case is we give in a second command or in a function or you're changing something anywhere. We say now name is, let's make it easy in the pseudocode for now. Um, Name it Sebastian. If we execute this command, like also like the reverse mathematical notation, first we say this, we'll give it a new definition, which is Sebastian. What we are doing there is that we are actually deleting this and we are updating the value of this variable. So now, if we have this, we are again doing print name, but now it will output Sebastian. So in the end, this whole system works like the name, you use it there, and you use it there. This is different because in the meanwhile you have interfered with the value, you've changed it, and you can do that like many times. And you think like, does, why is it interesting to constantly show it while it is changing? Why should you show this? And why not only this? Um, in the end, in the actual program, you will. But um, while you are building it, you will need to debug, find out where problems are. And then it's very handy to use every outputs so now and then to get the in-between values that it matches up with your mind, with your logics, which are needed for the application for the feature you are building. So, all right, these are variables. So this means you have an identifier, which is the name of the variable, which can be name, can be address, can be X, Y, Z. It can be literally, you can name it almost everything except like commands which are already defined in your program. Like you cannot call in this pseudocode, you cannot do print because it will completely wreck your code. So the compiler already will tell you like this isn't possible. But you will see that later in some more in-depth lessons. First, we are just watching what a variable is. And you can even, because this takes a little bit of memory, if you can understand, like a few bytes of memory. That sounds nothing, but in big programs, memory is absolutely an issue. So in the end, it can be even like, let's call it kill right now. We kill name, and that will make this disappear into from the memory, and you're completely clean again. So now this means that if you are setting the value of a variable, the content, the value, it's called a value, and that value can be a name or a word or a number or like you will see in the next lesson, which will be about objects. You will see that it can contain literally everything. But let's say for now, for the simple things, it's a number or it's a text, which makes the most sense in the examples. Um, you can imagine that, for example, if we have a variable here that this has like a content of 1, 2, 3, 4. This means that this variable, let me find out here, has a certain memory usage of about this, which is, for example, like, for example, 5 bytes of memory. Um, they are working with some predefined variables, like the most standard one, I will soon tell you, will be this, but as you see, at some point, it isn't fixing anymore in the type of variable, which is the amount of memory which is given. Like if it's a 32 bytes memory, you can only have such and so on data, and more is not fitting. So you will need another type of variable to store larger numbers. And then you would say, why not always use that? Because in some programming languages, you will lose some precision on it because it's only saving the last numbers or something and then adds zeros behind it. Or for memory usage, again, like if you have millions of variables and you could think like, how the heck should I ever have millions of variables? But it actually is existing and a lot in bigger programs that you are have to actively being aware of the amount of usage of your memory and also like what I just showed, like removing, cleaning up the variables. And the better programming languages that is being done completely with some smart characters, or you can explicitly do it. And there are also some programming languages which do that not so well, and they have a separate system next to it, like that's called a garbage collection, which removes unused variables from the memory. All right. For now, then, let's say it a little bit like this. We have this different types of variables. Let's say that type is an integer, which is also called an int as a shortage and used in most languages as that. Int is simply a number. It's just an integer. It can only contain a number. We also have integer. So this is a whole number. no decimals allowed behind it. Then we also have a float, which is like actually a floating point. And this one can be, for example, a number with decimals included. And we do this. We also have a third major version, and you may have heard of this earlier. It's called a string. And a string can contain more, so also normal characters. And also still the number, but the system won't recognize it as a number anymore. Now it are just characters. And if you want to calculate with it, you will need to use an int or a floating point, or there are many other types actually, but these structures are the most important. Um, and this will be that you will need to have this to calculate it, and also this. And for example, you can imagine if you are understanding that you will need the system to be recognized it as a number, so it should be an integer or a float and not a string. You can imagine that, for example, if you want to multiply this with this, that isn't theoretically possible because you're missing your decimals here. So you will have to, for example, convert it with Coda. You will learn it in way farther lessons to from one type to the other type, so they are compatible with each other. Like you cannot multiply an apple with a pear, right? So you have to make it all apples to greatly do this. Then for this, you have to imagine that every time you're using this, you're using memory. And let me show you the next thing we have, like for an integer, which is almost always used as int as an abbreviation. And I looked up the values from this, but the normal size which is used for an integer are this. So these are the numbers which are using because the system has only a few bytes of memory. So if you check the memory usage of this, you will see that with the least amount of bytes used in memory, you have your middle line, which is 0, and from there you go half up or half down to cover a maximum. But this also means we have, this is called unsigned integer, and we abbreviate to uint, which is not keeping the zero line as middle, but as the lowest point possible. So you can make more use of it, and it will result in a value like this. So this is actually the double of this one and this one, using the same amount of memory, but it does not allow you to go below 0, and the normal integer will do this. So if you do not need to go below 0, but you need a bigger number than this, but not bigger than this, you can use the uint. Also, this is if you are programming and you want to like express for yourself or for other programmers which are also working in your same application. With using an unsigned version of something, you like ensure that someone understands that this value can never be below 0. If you, for example, need bigger numbers, then there are variables which actually use twice the value, twice the size in bytes of the memory, which, for example, mostly is called a long. Um, this value, and here again I'm copying pasting in because these are like insane numbers already. Let me take it and I will show you. These are in a normal long the minimum and maximum value you can have in this. For example, this is a 32 byte code, so that means that you have you can if you do the whole byte hexadecimal coding, you will see that these numbers are actually you are able to calculate this because this is 32 bytes of memory using and it is 64 bytes of memory using. Like it's exponentially going with every byte, which x16 actually. Um, and you can imagine that if this number is not good enough, then you can just You already guessed it, right? Create an unsigned long, which have twice the number range of this because you're not able to go under zero. So this is the maximum value of an unsigned long. So that about memory usage and boundaries of variables. Like a string can be as long as you want. Let's note it down a little bit. Look, string, it works different with memory because it has a relative memory usage, though most languages lock it at 2 megabytes or something. But a string can be like only a few characters, and it's always a string is always between double quotes, by the way, for recognition for the system to know it. It's not the name of a variable or a function, but it's content and it's content of a string. So, but it can also be like some text and then adding like so much other text, and there it ends. This is still a string, but using, in this case, a very much amount of memory. So again, deleting this, because if you're not getting this so far, please stop your video, rewind it, replay it until you completely comprehend this. Because now we'll go to the next more difficult section. But first, if you're not already have done it, I assume you already did it. But subscribe to my channel and like this video, of course, and comment on it if you like so, and be my guest on our free Discord, which is in the link below. Um, we will now go to a second subject, which is not variables, but actually, but I keep it behind it, arrays. An array is like a very simple system. We again, let me draw it a little bit. This is our array, which has a name again, right? Let me a little bit make it more beautiful in this great Miro, which is again just like with the variables, you can use the name to identify it and to talk to it. Now, what is an array? We had a variable here which contains some values, like we have Sebastian here. Just skip the double quotes. Oh, wait, yeah, let me do this. We have Sebastian here, and here we have John, and let's have another guy. Who do you, we have more? We have Miley here, Miley Cyrus or something. MC fits perfectly. Anyway, let me a little bit move this down to here. And now in an array, we have two items. One is the key, and one is the value. Just like with a variable, like the content was the value, right? But now the whole variable is a value. And the key, in basics, this is the key 0, the key 1, and the key 2. So this means that with this structure, a little bit post this next to each other because I will need some extra space here. This, we can call this array name. Let's say it are people, whatever, doesn't really matter. But these are the people. Now, if we say print as pseudocode command, we are still working in pseudocode, guys. If you say print people, this will, in most cases, most programming languages, result in an error because you did not provide a key. So what you can do is you print people, and oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you, Everything in programming starts with 0 and not with 1. Important fact, 1 is already the second one in the follow-up, so the first key is normally always 0. Also, if you want to have the first character of a string, like a text string, you will have a character at index 0. In this case, these are also indexes. So if we do print people, and we do this in square braces, print people 0, you already actually know probably what we'll be printing here. It, it will print this. And if we do, obviously, we do this, then it shows you Miley. So this means that if you go back to the previous idea, like we're looping this, um, if we would say like, from the previous one, we did a counter while counter is below 3. So I'm starting at 0 while counter is below 3 because 2 is below 3. Then we say print people, and now there comes the trick. With not the 0 or the 1 or the 2 as the index, but we use the counter as an index. And then the next step will be, don't forget this like I did in the last lesson, we upper the counter plus 1, and then the program ends. Um, this will actually print Sebastian, John, Miley, because you are going to refer to the variable name here. So that means that this is going to there, and this is referring to the index. And obviously, if I'm going to have this, and you can imagine that if I say, for example, people uh, 2, sorry, people 2, and this is again the reverse mathematical notation. First you give it what am I defining, and then I'm giving the definition. So people number 2 is not Miley, but it's Beyonce. This will obviously, even if it was Miley at first, remember the variables from a few minutes ago, we are replacing the value of Miley with the value of Beyonce, so the output will not be this, but it will be this. Obviously, you can do anything with this, even if you are. Let's do this one more time to show any more ideas. If we have it 2 times and we do not have this here, but we have this here, not in a while loop, but after it, and then we're just doing it again, then our output will be Sebastian John Miley. Then we are putting it to Beyonce, but not showing yet. And after that, it's running the whole array again. It will show you Sebastian John Beyonce. Sorry, this is. So this will be the way that it's running through this array at that point. Obviously, this isn't, there are more options to work with this, and these values of an array are always of a type. This can be, like in this case, it are strings, so text. As remembering from a few minutes ago, we had already all kind of types. But that also goes for the keys. Now it's the defaulting index, but we could also like imagine that the value is not the first name, but the value is an address, and this one has address 1, address 2, 32, whatever, fine with me. And this is Eddie 34, also fine with me. Then we could also say this is Sebastian again. Uh, this will be, and I'm putting just, I will, it's simply shown habit to put any text between this double quotes. This one is called John, and this one is called, we had Miley. All right. Um, let's delete this for a minute. You are not needed either. Now we have not the keys 0, 1, and 2, but now we have the keys Sebastian, John, Miley. So let's rename this to a functional situation, which is addresses, for example. And if we want to get print um, addresses, and then the addresses of, now I'm using double quotes because I'm giving it a string. This is no, not the index anymore, but I'm giving the identifier, the key, John. So this will result in address 32 because I'm giving here, talking to this array of data, and I'm telling it to use the key John. So this returns me the value, which in this case is the string with the address in it. So um, to not make it more difficult, let's stop it here and let this go into your mind. Watch the video for a second time if you want. And if you feel you're done, then you can move on to the next video, which will be about objects. And objects are one of the more also most useful items in programming, and at bigger programs, that's the way like almost all programs are using it. Um, but the basis becomes by a variable because an object is a specific form of an variable. Well, for now, if you have any questions, feel free to enter our Discord. The link is below in the description. And yeah, you can find questions and answers there. There are a lot of people to discuss with you, help you. And yeah, just go join it, and we're happy to see you there. And otherwise, you can continue to the next lesson or watch this one again. I wish you a very pleasant day.